English Writing Skills, Punctuation Marks, Lesson 8. In this lesson, we'll talk about how we can use the semicolon to join independent clauses and to separate items in a series. Not all series, but I'll show you which ones. Also, we'll look at the use of a colon before an explanation or list.
Hello everyone. In this series, we considered different magical powers a person might want to have. In addition, we considered some of the potential dangers of such abilities. Looking at this statement, I see the need for only one more punctuation mark. Which one? A hyphen. Recall from our last lesson that one use of the hyphen is to help us break up a word at the end of a line. Like here. Considered. Other than that, this statement looks good. We have two sentences, and here we have a transition word to show the relationship between the two ideas. Here's a statement, and now we're adding to the statement, so in addition. This kind of transition word is also called a conjunctive adverb. We can start a sentence with a conjunctive adverb, and then it's followed by a comma. But to show an even closer relationship, we can use a semicolon. It looks like a comma with a dot above it. You don't see it very often, and I think many writers don't use it very often because there are so many doubts about when to use it, how to use it. Well, if you're joining two sentences together, two independent clauses, we now have one long statement, and I need to continue until the end. So here is a lowercase letter. The pattern then is independent clause, semicolon, transition word, conjunctive adverb, followed by a comma, and then my next independent clause. And I have a close relationship between the two ideas. In this case, it's additional information. What other conjunctive adverbs can fit into this pattern? Words that you probably know. However, otherwise, to show a contrast, similarly, furthermore, moreover. There are lists of conjunctive adverbs online. In any case, this is a possible pattern. You could start a new sentence with a capital letter, as we saw in the first version, or you could use the semicolon. Now, not only are there doubts about how to use this punctuation mark, there's also some doubt usually about how to pronounce it. If you go into a dictionary, you'll probably see at least two different pronunciations listed. I've heard semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. Okay, let's say semicolon. We use a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma, and then our next independent clause. Both ideas are closely related. Let me show you another example where we use a semicolon to join two independent clauses without a conjunctive adverb, without that transition word. Look at this next statement. Some embrace the idea of magic, others reject it. We have two short independent clauses. Could they be written as two separate sentences? Yes. How else could we write this? We could use a coordinating conjunction. Is the relationship clear? Some do this, others do that. It's a contrast, isn't it? So we could use comma, but. Some embrace the idea of magic, but others reject it. So there's more than one way. I would suggest using either but or the semicolon because there is a close relationship between the two ideas. And as long as the idea of contrast, as long as the relationship is very clear, the semicolon is appropriate. So we use the semicolon with or without the conjunctive adverb when we have two independent clauses that are closely and clearly related.
The semicolon does have a purpose and place in our writing, especially more formal kinds of writing. But I stress again, don't overuse the semicolon. Remember, variety is a good thing, so know your alternatives. You can write two separate sentences with or without a conjunctive adverb. Words like in addition, however. You can also write one compound sentence with a coordinating conjunction. Words like and, but. Now the term conjunctive adverbs may be a mouthful, but I bet there are conjunctive adverbs you use and you just didn't know they had a technical term. Now I want you to be sure you're using them correctly. Look at the two structures. Two separate sentences, or one statement using a semicolon. Both times the conjunctive adverbs are followed by commas, but note the use of a capital letter in the first pattern, and note the use of a lowercase letter in the second pattern. Here are some conjunctive adverbs you probably know. In addition, moreover, however, nevertheless, otherwise, similarly, likewise, and therefore. Note how I group them by relationship.
Do you remember the movie Phenomenon and the main character? The character of George Malley is meant to represent all of us. How we choose to handle our individual gifts and weaknesses is up to us. Does everything look good? Well, a lot of things do. We have a capital letter at the start of our sentence. We have final sentence punctuation. Proper nouns are capitalized. But what about the semicolon? It's true that it's joining two independent clauses, subject, verb, a long subject and a verb. But rather than two closely related ideas, I see a statement and then an explanation, a further explanation. If that's the case, the semicolon is not the best choice of punctuation marks. I would suggest using a colon. A colon looks like two dots, one above the other. So a colon can introduce an explanation. He represents all of us? In what way? Now I explain. If a colon introduces an explanation, you can start with a lowercase letter as long as that explanation is a word, a phrase, or one independent clause. If the explanation is made up of several sentences, if you're introducing a quotation that's made up of several sentences, you'll need to start that first letter of the first word with a capital letter. Let me show you another use of the colon. Here we have characters from the movie Phenomenon. George Malley, Nate Pope, best friend, Lace, love interest, and Doc, doctor and father figure. Okay, we have names, secondary information in parentheses. And what is this? A list. How do I introduce it? How do I present it? With a colon. So a colon can present or introduce a list, such as a cast of characters. I just told you that we could use a colon to introduce a list, but we're not always able to write that list in a column. Sometimes we have to continue writing on the same line. So we have a colon to introduce a list, in this case a list of filming locations. But what if in the series of items that we're listing, we have items that require commas? It gets confusing then trying to separate the items with commas if the items themselves need commas. such as a city, state, city, state, city, state. If that's the case, you leave the commas within the items, in this case separating city and state, and we use semicolons to show the larger divisions, the separation between this city and this one. 3 cities separated by semicolons because we're also including the state, California. Okay? So look at the use of a colon to introduce my list. I have a list of 3 locations: Sonoma, California, Auburn, California, San Francisco, California.
This is the end of part 1. Please go on to the next part of this lesson. Please visit my website today at www.englishwithjennifer.com. You'll find study tips, interactive exercises, vocabulary videos, and more.